Approximately 40 acres of Winchester's downtown area were listed in 1986 as a National Register Historic District. Designated by the federal government, such a district is a definable geographic area possessing a significant concentration of sites and structures important in American history, culture, architecture, or archaeology. The Winchester Center District is roughly in the shape of a triangle, anchored at its points by the First Congregational, Baptist, and Unitarian churches. It contains 56 buildings, 3 bridges, and 3 parks, many of which we will see in this program. It is a varied district. The architectural styles range from the Greek Revival of the antebellum period to the Art Deco of the early 20th century. For 2 centuries, the community now known as Winchester existed as a South Woburn village, but in the 1840s, for a variety of political and economic reasons, the community began to pull away from Woburn. In 1840, a group of South Woburn residents broke away from the Woburn Congregational Church to form a new congregational society. Purchasing a hill site, they quickly built a simple church. When Winchester was incorporated as a new town, separate from Woburn in 1850, the first town meeting was held in that building. The original church being destroyed by fire in 1853, this Italianate Romanesque structure was erected in 1854 on the same site. It is an impressive structure that symbolizes Winchester's break with Woburn. Above a cut granite foundation, the wood frame construction has a 6-bay nave articulated by pilasters, elongated arched windows, and bracketed cornice. The front entryway is framed by a Romanesque arch, surmounted by Italianate arched windows, and a central steeple tower that, during remodeling in 1884, was given stick-style features. The church clock was given by an anonymous donor to be owned and controlled by the town. In 1926, the parish house was built on the western end in a Tudor Revival style. To the east side of the church property, atop the hill, is the Clark House at 24 and 26 Vine Street. Built in 1890 by Anne Clark with money inherited from her father, a piano maker, the house sits on the edge of a section of town which, in the late 19th century, was favored by many prominent Winchester citizens for their homes. The Clark House is a large, double Queen Anne-style home. The first story is sheathed with clapboards, and, as was common to the style, the upper stories have a decorative shingle covering. We can still see the original glazed and paneled doors. A block lower, at the corner of Elmwood Street, Stetson Hall, a neo-Tudor-style building, was erected in 1929. Down the hill at 18 Elmwood, a beautiful, irreplaceable mansard-style house, built prior to 1870, was demolished, even as the National Register District nomination was being prepared. Opposite Stetson Hall stands the earliest civic building in town, Old District 5 School. Originally built in 1843 on the corner of Dix and Church Streets as part of Woburn's haphazard school system, it was used as a school until the end of the Civil War. The second floor housed the fledgling Winchester High School. From 1865 to 1928 it was a private home, then became the Kelly and Hawes Funeral Parlor. Built as a 2 1/2-story wood-framed Greek Revival structure, it retains much of its original massing and form. During the late 1950s, the structure was remodeled with brick siding and colonial revival-style features. Directly below is the Winchester Cooperative Bank, whose facade is an interesting example of the Art Deco style popular in the early decades of this century. Among its interesting features is the decorative work about the entry that is Middle Eastern, Mesopotamian in origin. From about 1915, the offices of the Winchester Star were housed in this building, which is in the colonial revival style. Though it now faces onto Church Street, the present back of the building was originally the front, and some of the original features can still be seen there. The preceding sites are separated from those following by the railroad bridge that crosses Main Street. At the rotary beneath the railroad, we are in the vicinity of the 1835 crossing of the Boston and Lowell Railroad that sparked the development of this town. Originally, the road was to have been elevated over the tracks, but lowering the tracks some 15 feet into water-saturated soil would have been impossible. Instead, gates were installed. By 1936, the crossing was closed an average of 8 to 12 minutes out of each hour by trains constantly flowing through the community. In 1950, there were 87 trains and some 25 to 30,000 automobiles per day trying to make the crossing. In slightly more than a century, 40 people were killed on the tracks. The situation finally led to the 1956 construction of a permanent overpass. Past the rotary, at the corner of Mount Vernon and Main Street, we see the building that was originally Lyceum Hall. Constructed in the Gothic style in 1851, the original building had pointed Gothic arches, frescoed walls, and diamond-paned stained glass in the windows. It had a high basement in which were several shops. The first floor contained 2 stores and a dividable hall, and above was the main hall and 4 offices. The third floor had yet another hall and additional offices. Lyceum Hall was the site of town meeting for 35 years before Town Hall was completed. It was also the site of lectures, including a controversial appearance by Oliver Wendell Holmes to discuss the Westminster Confession. The appearance of Lyceum Hall has been significantly altered, particularly following a fire in 1950, after which the third floor was removed. In 1987, the post-fire stucco exterior was restored to a shingled facade. Down Shore Road from the Lyceum building is the Kelly and Hawes stable, built in 1896. On the other corner of Main Street and Mount Vernon Streets, the Brown and Stanton block stands as an example of a panel brick Queen Anne business building. It was constructed in 1879. Brown was the town's apothecary and postmaster, and Stanton was a grocer. The original building contained the post office, savings bank, municipal offices, and public library. In Harmony Hall on the 2nd floor, the first Episcopal service was held in 1882. The Brown and Stanton building was built on an irregular plan to conform to its curved site. Above the ground floor remodeling of the 1950s, we see panel brickwork, burnt stretchers, string course, patterns in the brick, elaborate corbelling in the trim, 2 cross gables, and the conical roofed turret at the curved corner to which the building conforms. To the left of the Brown and Stanton block on Mount Vernon is the White block, built in 1890, a commercial classical revival structure. Site of the YMCA, from 1890 to 1905, the building has housed various businesses. The old Winchester Savings Bank building on Mount Vernon was built in 1892 in the Richardsonian Romanesque style, a style that reflects medieval architecture of France, Spain, and Italy. The cave-like arched entryway has a colossal Tuscan portico resting on short, stubby, grouped columns of Tennessee marble topped with leafy, cushion-like capitals. The tower has arched windows and molding, and the entryway window casings are trimmed with Lake Superior sandstone. The cornice is embellished with stone modillions, and the roof has fish-scale slate. The roof line is topped with a paneled brick Queen Anne chimney. The apex of the front gable has a date stone, nearly effaced by the elements. The building has been listed individually on the National Register since 1980. Across from the bank is the New England Laundry Building, now the Mill Pond Building. Formerly headquarters of New England's largest laundry, the building was erected in 1912 and altered beyond recognition in 1974. The stables for the laundry are now occupied by Maximilian's Cafe. Next to the bank is the fire station, constructed in 1913 in the colonial revival style, designed by architect Edward Waite. It is the town's third firehouse. At the time it was built, the lockup was moved from the basement of Town Hall to the adjacent police station, now the Public Safety Building. The fire station is much higher than the surrounding street, since the selectmen at that time had a plan to raise the street 17 feet to run over the train crossing. The building is built of red brick in Flemish bond with cast iron trimmings. The gable end is to the street with a 3-engine bay facade. It has stylized Corinthian plasters, cornice with dentils, a rondelle in the gable, and a cupola on the roof that harkens back to 18th century public buildings. It underwent major interior renovation in 1985. Crossing the Aberjona River, we come upon Town Hall, a century old and under renovation at the time this program was taped. Town Hall has been listed individually on the National Register since 1983. Its construction marked a change in Winchester from an industrial community to a middle-class Boston suburb. Town Hall was designed by the architectural firm of Rand and Taylor in the Richardsonian Romanesque style, with some Queen Anne and Colonial Revival trim features. Constructed of red brick with a Rockport granite foundation, the structure has trimming of Longmeadow freestone. It is topped with a slate roof with copper flashing. Town Hall is sprawling and asymmetrical, featuring a number of interlocking geometric shapes. Heavy stone surfaces, arched entryways, abutment arched windows, and lack of uniformity mark its style. The main entrance is given visual emphasis by its double arcade of Romanesque or Syrian arches, which support the smaller arches in the second story. The arch motif is repeated on all sections of the main building. Foliated ornaments of spirals, clustered leaves, and flowers decorate several portions of Town Hall. Windows appear in groups of 2s, 3s, 4s. 2 eyebrow dormers wink out of the roof. The clock tower has oculus windows on all sides of a pyramidal roof. The bell tower and clock were built with a gift of $3,000 from Colonel William Winchester, after whom the town was named, in return for the gift. Across the intersection of Washington and Mount Vernon streets, we see the Baptist Church. It was designed by George Newton in the English Gothic Revival style in 1928, replacing an earlier 1864 church. It was constructed of buff granite and stucco with a slate roof. Gothic features include the bell tower and arched windows. In 1986, the congregation sold half the church building to a developer for conversion to residential condominiums. In November of 1987, the interior of the church portion of the building was severely damaged by fire. Proceeding up Washington Street, we come next to the public library, built in 1931. Prior to this building, the library was housed in the east wing of the town hall. The library is a 1 1/2 story building with a complex gable slate roof. It is constructed of roof-faced, uncoursed granite with cut limestone trim. The entryway, emphasized by a cross gable, features a round Romanesque recessed arch and mosaic entrados. The current reading room has windows of Tiffany-painted glass. Other windows are steel casement windows with sand-blasted aluminum spandrels, splayed lintels, and segmental arches. When new, the building had a small lecture hall and art gallery. Across Mystic Valley Parkway from the library is the Beaux-Arts neoclassical Lincoln School. Tradition says that it is on the site of the orchard of Edward Converse, first settler of this region. Built in 1903 on land originally bequeathed to the town for a library, the school was originally the high school, then junior high school, and finally the Lincoln Elementary School. It is designed in an H that allows maximum light and air into the classrooms. It is of buff-colored brick with elaborate cast stone trim. The original entrance faced the parkway and was flanked by the bays we now see to each side of the school office. The newer flared portico entrance on Washington Street was added around 1950. Classical features of the style are visible especially about the cornice and windows. At the intersection of the Parkway and Main Street stands Winchester's memorial to those who fought and died in the Great War. The statue was designed by New York sculptor Herbert Adams, and the original 1926 landscaping was the work of the Olmsted firm. Looking not back upon the war, but to the peace that followed, the sculpture shows the intertwining hands of figures representing humanity and justice. Opposite the memorial is the 1899 Gothic Revival Unitarian Church. This church replaced an earlier structure lost to fire in 1897. The building was influenced by the churches of Ralph Adams Cram, an eminent Boston church designer. The parish house was added in 1929. Above the Unitarian Church is McCall Junior High School, which displays Federalist and Colonial Revival features. Returning to downtown Main Street, we come to Mill Pond, site of the first dam and mill built by Edward Converse. The land owned by Converse, together with that of his neighbor Zachariah Sims, included all of what is now Winchester Center. Until the early 20th century, a mill of some sort stood at the dam, and Winchester Center was an industrial site. Today, MDC Parkland lies at the heart of Winchester Center. At the dam site, a bridge has crossed the Aberjona along Main Street since 1641. The present Converse Bridge was built in 1915. It is a colonial revival in style, of concrete with graceful rounded arches. Along Main Street in Winchester Center are two significant buildings, the Locatelli Block and the Woolworth Building. The latter is a commercial colonial revival building built in 1927, constructed of cast concrete in the same style as the Lieberman Block next to it. As of the time of this taping, the building has been occupied by Woolworth with an unchanged exterior appearance for 60 years. The 1935 Locatelli Building is a regionally important example of the early 20th century commercial block. Its developer, Albert Locatelli, called it a little Rockefeller Center. It had 24 shops, 12 offices, and 4 studio apartments. Brigham's was one of its first tenants. In 1940, Filene's opened with much fanfare, including the appearance of a bright red commercial goods hauling helicopter service making demonstration runs between Shore Road Field and Boston. Attempts by the developer to install a movie theater met with overwhelming community opposition. The building is in colonial revival style. Interesting details include the cast stone trim for entry surrounds, belt courses, coins, and keystones over second-story windows. Down Thompson Street, across from the archway to shops at Winchester Terrace, we encounter the 1846 Ingalls House. It was built for Dr. William Ingalls, the town's first physician. His move to the community probably reflects the 1835 arrival of the Boston and Lowell Railroad. The style of this house is that of the very popular and pervasive Greek Revival with a side hall plan. Noteworthy features of this style include the original clapboard siding, 6/6 windows, corner pilasters, flush-board gable with quarter-round windows, and a recessed entry with 3/4 side lights. The first-floor bay is a modern alteration. The Ingalls House is representative of several mid to late 19th century houses that were converted to commercial use in the community. At the corner of Thompson and Waterfield Streets stands the neoclassical United States Post Office, built in the late 1920s. The brick exterior rests on a limestone water table over a brick-faced foundation. The main entrance has a projecting pediment supported by 4 Doric columns. Smaller windows in recessed architraves flanked the round, arched fanlit entryway. A simple dentriculated entablature of limestone and brick surrounds the entire building, repeating that in limestone of the portico. Passing under the railroad and returning to Church Street at the head of Waterfield Street, we see the Boone Building, a 1902 structure that was built as an apartment building. All the first tenants were doctors, and several single-family homes on this block being also occupied by doctors, this part of Church Street was known as Doctors' Row. The Boone Building has colonial revival windows and trim, a bow front, heavy cornice, and Romanesque arched entry. Also on Church Street is the Bay Bank, a 1913 neoclassical building with many excellent classical features, including the Doric columns supporting a classical entablature and pediment. Next to the bank is the Red Cross Building. Built in the early 1920s as an office building, it was a funeral home from 1937 to 1967 before becoming home to the Red Cross. It is a curious mixture of several styles, a bungalow with Spanish clay tile roof and classical features about its doorway, adding a touch of interesting whimsy to the area. To the right of these last buildings is the Congregational Church, where we began. On the opposite side of the street is Winchester Common, originally a cornfield, part of the Converse farm. The common has been used for grazing and as a playfield. In 1867, the town acquired the land. A bandstand was erected, but is now gone. A fountain was erected with scandalous cherubs, but also is now gone. As with other parts of the downtown area, they are part of Winchester's lost history and heritage. Listing in the National Register may help preserve, perhaps restore, other sites and structures of significance to the community's history and culture.